Hi there, and welcome to the fourth and last week of our Hitchcock in London book club. In this video, I'm going to talk about some contrasts between Joseph Conrad's novel, The Secret Agent, and Hitchcock's film, Sabotage, that we're going to talk about this week. There are a couple in particular to keep in mind. One is that Hitchcock updates the setting of the action to the 1930s instead of the 1890s in the novel. And this creates some resonances with what's going on in Nazi Germany in that time period. Some other differences to keep in mind as you watch the film are the characters of the detective and Winnie. They're much more sympathetic in the film than they are in the novel. As we've talked about, Sabotage is an adaptation of Joseph Conrad's The Secret Agent, but Hitchcock couldn't use the title of the novel for this film because he had already used it for the previous film he made right before Sabotage. Charles Bennett, who wrote the screenplay for Sabotage, also wrote the screenplay for The Secret Agent. Conrad was interested in how people turn against their society. The anarchists in the novel develop such an antipathy towards the government and London of their time that they actually decide to act against it, to attempt to destroy some of its most sacred institutions. And we know that one of the events in the novel was partially inspired by the 1894 bombing at the Greenwich Observatory. Hitchcock transposes the setting of the film to London of the 1930s, so it's meant to be a contemporary film, and therefore the villains in the film connect with political events of the time. The actor who plays Verloc is Oskar Homolka. He was born in Vienna and worked in Berlin, so he speaks with what sounds like a German accent. And of course, the character's name, Verlocken, means to mislead or entice or deceive. So that fits right in with the deceptive nature of his character. For audiences in the mid 1930s, Verloc's name and accent would have connected him to the Nazis and might have reminded people that sympathy for Nazi ideology had begun to infect some levels of British society. Sabotage is a thriller, but we know who the villain is from the first 2 minutes. It's Mr. Verloc. So where's the suspense? We feel suspense because we're wondering when his family's going to find out what he's doing and when will he get caught by the police. Most of the characters in the film are suspicious of one another. Ted the detective is suspicious of Mr. Verloc, and Mr. Verloc is suspicious of him. Mrs. Verloc is puzzled by both of them, and the little boy Stevie is oblivious. We watch how these suspicions influence their behavior and attitudes towards each other. As you can see in this image, the film also uses German expressionist techniques that we've talked about, like the dramatic lighting and the shadows, to create a sense of mystery and suspicion. This is the scene where Mrs. Verloc is confused about where her husband has been, and we know that he's lying to her. Here are two posters that were used to promote the film. The poster on the left emphasizes the thriller and action elements of the story. You see the explosion at the beginning front and center in this poster. You'll recall that Conrad revised an earlier version of the novel to heighten attention to Winnie and her emotional experience of her situation. Winnie's growing understanding of what is happening in her life is also a vital part of the film. In fact, the film was released in the US under a different title, The Woman Alone, as you see in this poster on the right. And this poster emphasizes her emotion and her fear. And this poster, we don't even know it's her husband. It looks more like a monster who's scaring her very much. So the film was not only marketed as a thriller, it was also presented as a melodrama because it focuses on a female character's emotional experience of her life. One way the film highlights Mrs. Verloc's emotions is by introducing a romantic complication in the character of Ted, the man on the right, the detective who is disguised as a grocer for much of the film. In the novel, Conrad does not valorize the police. In fact, he suggests that the police are just as corrupt as the spies they're tracking. But in the film, Ted feels protective towards Mrs. Verloc. He wants to shield her from the ugliness of her reality. His emotional involvement with her nearly compromises his work as a detective, and he almost throws his career aside. The film doesn't ask us to condemn him, though. I think we feel more sympathetic to him than we do to Conrad's police. Thank you.